Hey, JobTread pros. This is Peter with Ranney Blair. So I've been working on a couple of zaps here for quite a while. I mean, probably over at least a couple of weeks, if not a month or so, and struggled a little bit. And I wanted to make this video to maybe help some others and also see how others have been using zaps to integrate their JobTread software with other pieces. This video might get a little bit long. I would definitely recommend watching it at like a 1.5 times speed. You can always loop back, maybe if you see something interesting that might help you. So I've set up a couple zaps. The main one that I'd like to go over today is one that I think I'd posted on the group a couple of days or so ago about trying to get set up, and Eric had reached out to me, so I really appreciate his help on getting that set up. And as a follow up, I wanted to post this video. So a couple zaps I've worked on and I've got kind of updated is just going through these real quick before I get to the HubSpot deal one is calculating a warranty expiration date and then adding back in that in a JobTread, which has been pretty cool to see. The create the Google contact, which has been nice as well. And I'm also pushing the JobTread URL for the actual job back into HubSpot. So if one of our sales people or whoever's in HubSpot, they can click right back into the JobTread. Warranty expiration, same thing. So pushing the JobTread warranty expiration into HubSpot. We're going to use this one in particular for a lot of automations within HubSpot to create kind of a drip campaign, so to speak, for our warranty process. So one being we want our customers, if they're warranty issue, to call us, but also the second really feature is a marketing aspect of keeping in front of mind. So similar thing here, the start date on the warranty. Another zap I'm working on here and haven't quite finished or got totally working properly is we store all of our before photos. So when we go on our sales calls, we'll take a bunch of before photos, save those in Google Drive under the client folder. What I'd like to have a zap for is when we create the job in JobTread is to pull those photos from Google Drive, add them to the proper JobTread job, and then tag those with the proper tag. So that's something I'm working on. But the one that I wanted to focus on today is the HubSpot integration. And you could probably replace HubSpot with any other CRM and do the same thing. But for us, we're on HubSpot, and there were some really particular things that I had to set up. Again, with Eric's help, I had to set up in HubSpot and JobTread to make them communicate with each other to properly pull in all the data. So I'm going to go right now into the Zap and kind of run through each stage. And as more detail is needed, I'll kind of address those details. So let me get into the edit. And all right, looks like I'm working on something there. All right. So the trigger for the whole thing, and once again, the purpose of this Zap is when a deal in HubSpot reaches a certain stage, that it will create not only the customer, but also the job. So the trigger in this Zap is for HubSpot that when a deal stage reaches, let me click through this real quick. So obviously you need to connect your HubSpot or whatever CRM account you got going on. What I'm telling it, the event that's going to be happening that I want to trigger off of is when a deal stage is updated. So that's what this is saying here. In the account, right? So that's got to set up your account, trigger. So I have one deal pipeline, which is sales. So I'm going to say, okay, my sales pipeline, when a deal stage reaches PDA sent, right? So once all your stuff's set up, you can choose whichever deal stage you want. So once my deal stage reaches PDA sent, which for us means we've sent them a design agreement or about to send them a design agreement, that from when those things happen to create a job in JobTread. So there are some additional properties that I've asked it to retrieve, and this is all specific to your use case. In my use case, I'm asking it to retrieve the contact ID, which is actually important. I'll show you here in a second. First name, last name, client address, phone number, obviously this stuff. I'm asking it to populate my project story, which is basically a project description, the Canvas scan, and also the Google Drive folder. So once I've done that, pulling those fields. It obviously pull a test account. So I've created a test account. I ran through it and did that. So I can actually test this stuff out. All right, so now into the action. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, I should say. It's not difficult, it's not impossible, but it's a little bit tricky. Where I was going wrong initially, what I was saying is to create a job. And that's not enough because, as most of you JobTread users know, to create a job, you first have a customer. So if you go back into JobTread, right, and I say, let me add a job, the first thing it's asked is the customer. So that's in Zap, in the Zapier, you got to ask for to create the customer first. So once you ask that, click continue. Obviously, you got to tie in your JobTread Zapier integration. So now in the action step of this is where we start connecting everything together. So once you tie your organization, it's going to pull in any of your custom fields that you've asked. So if you have custom fields for your customers or your contact record, etc., and I'll show you more of that in detail, it's going to pull all those in. So the first thing is, right, to create your customer. And the way I've personally decided to separate it for my use case is I want a first and last name. You could have this as the same name, like first and last name combined. That's fine, but I'll show you why I decided to separate it. And one caveat with HubSpot, and before I go any further, there are two kinds of records essentially. Well, there's a lot of records, but there's two main records in HubSpot: a contact record. So that would be the example of that would be if someone fills out your lead form and they come into your contact database, so to speak, they are considered a contact until you've made them a deal. It's all their information lives on their contact record. Once you make them a deal, then there's a contact record and a deal record. So in HubSpot, what I've had to do is create and mimic, and I'll just jump in here real quick to show you. Let me find my test account, which is this one. Let's move my little face here. So you see in HubSpot, you have this contact, which is different than the deal. So this is the person that's associated with this deal. And about this deal on the left side here, these are the custom fields that you can create and that I've decided to create. So I've created project story, Canvas scan, JobTread record, Google Drive folder, etc. So down even the first name, last name, address, email, phone, and then these warranty dates. This contact ID and this record ID, these are already IDs on the account. So you don't have to create these, but I would highly recommend adding these. And I think it's really maybe beyond a recommendation. I'm pretty sure you have to, thinking about it now. The record ID is probably the most important, but I'll show you how I use the contact ID to kind of link things together. So the moral of the story is here is in HubSpot, you need to go into your deals, and you do that by, once you're in a deal, you go to this view all properties. It's probably maybe a separate video. There's other videos about it as well, but you want to create some properties to help you with the Zap. Okay, back to the customer. So I've created my customer name with, and you'll see when you click in this box here, if you're not familiar with Zapier or whatever, it's pulling all this information from HubSpot, and you can tell it's got the little HubSpot logo. Right, and the way I decided to do on mine, because I named it client, and then whatever client first name, last name, address. Or when I type in client, you can see I get my first name, my last name, email, etc. So, got my customer name. They're not taxable in my case. I'm not interested in assigning access at this point. Maybe I would, but anyway, different thing for let's not confuse the situation at this point. So I want to add a customer contact, and that is true, right? So this is actually adding the data of the actual contact. So I want to add my contact name. So this person was named Doug Test Account. There's no title, not interested in their business title. I got their email, got their phone number, got their contact ID. This is where I was showing you in HubSpot, have this contact ID. All right. So sorry, wrong screen. So let me pause here for a second too. And so these title fields here, these are coming from JobTread. So in JobTread, let me close out of this. Let me go to my settings, go to custom fields. All right. So in customer contacts, you're going to want to add a customized HubSpot contact ID. These are custom fields, and the HubSpot contact. Also down in jobs. So I have a whole bunch of other custom fields that are related specific to my use case. It can be whatever for yours, but I would highly recommend, if you want these deals to connect, add the HubSpot Deal ID, add a HubSpot deal, and go. And for me, I'll show you also how I connect to my Google Drive folder, which is pretty cool. So you need to add these records in JobTread. So if you get kind of halfway down the road and you're like, oh man, I totally forgot, that's fine. What you want to do is go back in your Zap after you've added those fields, start again your trigger, refresh the fields, and it'll populate through. So anyway, all right, customer contact fields. So we got their email, got their phone, and got their contact ID. So if you notice this HubSpot contact ID, this is looping back to this contact. So basically what this is saying is, let me tie these contacts together, and I'll show you how to work once we finish this app. This is the link to HubSpot. So in JobTread, and I'll show you an example of that real quick. Let me find my Doug test account. Test account here. And see, what was I looking at? Oh, the contact. So if I'm in the actual contact, so in the customer record, move the face again. So I have this link here because I've added those records. I can actually click on this and it'll take me to my HubSpot account. So that's the reason why you don't have to do that. It's not necessary to create a job, but it's really a super simple step to add in to create a lot of link backs, so you don't have to, if you're interested in seeing their HubSpot or adding something to their HubSpot, right, without having to log into HubSpot, you can just click on their link right there. So that's why I did that. So, okay, now add location. Yes, you have to have a location to add a job. So that needs to be true to add the job. So location, I'm not interested in a location name. That'll populate on its own. I've added a location address. This is the full address, the street, the city, the state, and the zip code. I'm not assigning access at this point. And so now I want to say, once again, it's a true, false, add a job. Yes, true, please add a job. And so now, based on my HubSpot fields in my deal record over here on the left side, and I'm pointing, like you can see my screen, but I'm pointing over here on the left side, is where these fields are coming from. So let me jump back here. So if I'm saying my project story, right, so you can see my project story is here, wants to update 70s ranch house. Okay, so that's where the project story is coming in. My job name, right, this is whatever you want to name your job. For our use case, I want to name our jobs the last name, and this is a custom field for us in the job. All right. Project type, not sure what it's pulling no data. I guess I must have assigned that later, but anyway, that's there. Designer to be assigned, phase, design, stage, my PDF sent, job name. So this is just my, all right, I was looking at something. Looks like I have like two record fields for some reason. I have a job name here and then a job name there. Not really sure. I'll have to look at that, understand what's going on there. But moving on, I have these other kind of fields, not interested in that. Current contact, not interested in that either. Estimate, all right. So this is where the HubSpot deal ID, and you can see I'm kind of scanning through these. These are all my custom fields, so I may or may not want to populate them. But I would highly advocate is going ahead and adding your deal ID. And if I go back to HubSpot, you'll see in the deal record, the ID for the deal is this number right here, right? You can also see in the URL here is 128.265, etc. Right? It's the same number. So in the Zap, what I've said is, okay, give me my deal ID here, and then as the URL, essentially what you want to do is copy the first part of this URL, right? So it's this starting at, of course, HTTPS, bam, 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 all the way to the deal, stop at the /, copy that into the link here, and then add in deal ID. And that will basically create the link in JobTread to get back to your deal record. And I'll show you an example of that right here. So I'm in this test account which we're looking at. So within their custom job fields, I can scroll down and see their deal. So I can click on the deal here, right? And it takes me right to the deal within HubSpot. Okay, back to the Zap. So once you get all that, this ID and the deal with this link, what I've also decided to add is my Google Drive folder. So within the deal also, and I'll show you real quick here how we use Google Drive for our purposes. So once again, it's going to add the link. And just to show you how I added the link is within HubSpot, I've already asked it in another Zap, which I can briefly go over real quick at the end of this. I've asked it to create all the folders in another Zap. And once all those folders are created, then add the link into HubSpot, which is here. So I've got the Google Drive link here as well. What I'm asking it to do here is pretty simple. Just copy that link into JobTread. So if I go to here, click on my Google Drive folder, what we do is all our sales, our kind of preliminary sales activities. So we'd have our before photos in here. There's a little bit of sidetrack, but I think it's a little bit important to maybe show. We have our before pictures. We'd also have any sales notes that they would take and then scan in. We call it our GBBs, kind of our initial proposals, good, better, best type stuff. This is just Excel, Google Sheet files. More importantly, this is the main reason why we have this is our design files. So our designers that are at work at Ranney Blair, this is where they store all their design documents. So the initial files, outdated plans, design materials, then ultimately the final design. But it's super convenient to have links in here. So when the designers or estimator or whoever's in here working, they can just really quickly go find the drive. So that is that. All right, so we got all the pieces there. So, of course, then you hit continue. You'll run a test. It'll basically tell you if it's sent. And what I would recommend is doing is getting this set up and then going into HubSpot and then starting at the create a contact, run through the steps, and then see how it flows through to make sure everything is working properly. And the last thing I was going to show you was this other Zap that I had set up. Let me get out of this. On my Drive folders. It's not there, it must be over here. So what I'm asking this to do is create client folders in Drive from HubSpot. And this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I wanted to show you how I ultimately looped it back into HubSpot at the end here. So I've asked it to, the triggers when a deal stage is updated. So I think this is like the code name for the actual deal, but I'm pretty sure it's the PDA sent as well. But it could be whatever you want it to be, right? So when the deal stage happens, create these folders. So it's going to create this folder and et cetera, down, create these folders, create some bam. So at the very end, the last action I'm going to ask it to do is pull the object ID, which is the deal ID. So if you go back to this record, right, it's a little bit different test. So the numbers are different, but this is the record ID. So you can see how when you tie these together, it'll really help JobTread and your other software communicate with each other. No, hey, this is this record. So make sure based on that record number, then you can pull these other records. So I've asked it to pull that record. And once again, you have to basically copy the first part of the Google Drive URL and then add in the last part of the ID, which is specific to basically when I tied it back to here. So that's how I did that. And it's created a really cool kind of ecosystem here of all my links and everything. So hopefully that's been helpful for some people. Once again, really interested to see how other people have been using Zaps and connecting JobTread with other Zaps and everything. Hope this is helpful for some people. See you guys later.